Go ahead, Marty.
And if I may, just to kind of speak to the conversation at hand here, you know, it is now April 22nd. 2 years ago, we had a rate on April 4th. And we are 3 weeks behind that. If we're going to honor the will of the citizens that spoke tonight, most of which are left, and the people that called in, the manager's going to need time to work on this, and waiting until our next regular meeting, which is May 13th, makes that window rather narrow for him to accomplish aligning the budget with the tax rate that we adopt if we choose to prevent a tax increase on our citizens. So with that said, respecting the time of staff, respecting the time of the manager, respecting the citizens that were here tonight that left, respecting the people that left our voicemails for us earlier, I'm going to make a motion that we amend the agenda. And that we, and I'm thankful for this, was not aware that you brought the blank ordinance, so I appreciate you doing that, Mr. City Attorney, because I don't know if you paid attention, but in my initial motion, I actually asked to have the ordinance on the 13th. But since we have the blank ordinance with us, I don't think that a business item briefing would even be necessary at this point. I'm going to make a motion that we amend the agenda to adopt a real estate tax rate at the close of all of the distinct and separate public hearings that we have the rest of this evening. That's my motion.
Second. I make a substitute motion that we give the city attorney enough time to revisit this, and we sit down with him and go over what can be done. What is the compromise? You come in here with a what, 7.6, okay? Where is the compromise? You pushing down the throat what you want. Not supposed to clap. Come on, don't do that.
Mr. Mayor.
What's your motion?
My motion is that we proceed with the agenda, and on the 13th, when we come back, we will take up the issue of the rate. That's what we're going to do. That's my motion.
I'll second that. So I guess to kind of restate what I think you're saying, Mayor, is that we would finish the night out, let the citizens be heard, and then pick up where we've left off at our next meeting to then discuss as a body what the different options might look like and not adopt a rate tonight while we have heard from our citizens. We would then discuss the different variations of what a budget would look like at the proposed rate from tonight and talk through what that might look like with our city staff and maybe other possibilities, and not lock something in tonight without having a full discussion amongst council so that we can see what the cause and effect of proposed rate changes would be. Is that a fair?
Yes, ma'am.
So that, I would support that. So that's a substitute motion that's on the floor now.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Timmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I respectfully disagree. I believe we had a lot of time to speak and work with citizens and to speak with staff, and we are going to need time to adjust the rate to craft this budget appropriately in a way that it's not shotgunned. And we need to have the discussion after the rate in order to make sure that the priorities are being met. We've seen in the schools, and we've talked about this, there's a deferred maintenance issue in the schools. They have not been prioritized in the CIP. They need to be prioritized. There are certain areas in our city that need to be prioritized. There aren't endless resources, but there are always endless needs. And so with that, we have to look at what our jurisdiction is as government. Can you hear me, Chris? I saw you pointing at Mike. Okay. We have to look at what our jurisdiction is as government and be able to work within the confines of that. There were a lot of individuals that brought up creativity and creative approaches. Mr. Feraldi has talked about some creative approaches with the pool that I think are excellent, and I've started pursuing. I think there's a lot of opportunity to take these creative approaches in various areas of the CIP, and that's going to bring more community involvement. But as far as tonight, I believe it's more than appropriate at the end of the public hearings to vote on the rate and then to be able to work with city staff to make sure that those priorities are met moving forward.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I very much am opposed to this delay. I think our staff deserves to have time to know what the rate is going to be and then to work the budget to fit in the rate. We as individuals have to learn to live within our means. We all understand that in our households. We need to set what the means are right now so they can learn to live within them. This is a rate that will still mean some people pay higher taxes. And when I ran, I made a commitment that I wanted people to write smaller checks than they wrote last year. I made a motion to try to get it down a little lower to 75 cents, which still would have meant some people had a tax increase and paid more in taxes. So 7.676 is not what I wanted. 75 probably still wouldn't accomplish what I made a commitment to the people of Ward 3 that I would fight for. However, I understand that government is compromise. And I am compromising by going for the equalization rate. And I'm pleased that the city attorney has the form here to write the ordinance, to pass it, to get it done so that these folks can get to work on the budget and know exactly what they're working with now rather than weeks from now. This is our one window of opportunity. And putting it off puts a lot of pressure on them to try to figure out where we're going to settle. I think they deserve to know where we stand. We had 6 people that up here that ran on lowering taxes. This shouldn't be that hard. This shouldn't be that hard.
I lower taxes.
And here's
I lower taxes.
So let me finish, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
We all said that. I think we all meant it in our hearts. I may have meant it a little more than most. I'm not at all ashamed of being the advocate for people keeping more of their own money. And that's what I want to continue to do. And I don't see any reason to delay to do it. So that's why I will oppose the seconding.
Mr. Mayor. I'm going to start off with something that I've heard you say to me many times. You've said to me, and I believe I've heard you say it publicly to others, if you come to me in a good way, I'm going to treat you in a good way. If you come to me in a bad way, I'm still going to treat you in a good way. I'm going to let you know that you just came to me in a bad way, and I'm still going to treat you in a good way.
Yes, I do.
Because when you said that I'm trying to shove what I want down, please get this chamber in order, Mr. Mayor. Please get this chamber in order. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And when you just sat here and told me that I was trying to shove what I wanted down the throats
Yes.
of this council, in fact, we heard from 49 people. Out of those 49 people that we heard from, 36 of them said, don't increase our taxes.
Right.
So if you're going to accuse me of shoving something somebody wants down somebody's throat, please accuse me of shoving what the citizens that were here and spoke to the tax rate and have left wanted. Because that's what I was doing. I was doing my job. And I'm going to take a little trip down memory lane that directly affects this, and you know, it's why we're going to oppose, or why I'm going to oppose this, is because we already know what to do. We talked about this. We know what to do. So this is the fiscal year 2023 capital improvement program, right? 23 to 27. Downtown parking deck facility. Existing structure continues to decline and is aging beyond reasonable ongoing maintenance. Revitalization and growth in downtown are creating a need to have added parking capacity. It's also part of the master plan to have a mixed use, which means not just parking, maybe something else, garage, to increase parking and boost economic development. In 2023, the price tag of that was $17.3 million. Principal and interest, that's what they said. Then the first budget, when we showed up here, fiscal year 2024, Midtown parking deck replacement. Deck is at the end of its useful life, 60 years plus, and needs replacement. We'll add retail along Commerce Street. So that's the same parking deck, a mixed-use parking deck. In 1 year, it went from $17.3 million to, what do you know, $51.6 million. $51.6 million. And you know what? These are Donna Witt's comments that she typed up in the minutes in Civic Clerk, because we can pull up those notes. And Larry Taylor asked the city manager, have you considered restoring this instead of tearing it down and replacing it? Last year it wasn't on our CIP. This year, Midtown parking deck repairs. Long-term repairs to deck to preserve its lifespan. Total $622,503. So Mr. Taylor, Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
you actually have said what we need to do. Instead of spend, tear down and rebuild, restore. And by doing that, by saying that, in a 2-year period, Mayor Taylor, you saved our citizens $51 million. And I appreciate that.
Yes,
I appreciate that.
yes.
And that was something that everybody was, even Councilmember Dolan said we probably should privatize that garage if at the price tag that it was. So, when I look at that and I see a project goes from 17.3 million 1 year to 51.6 million the next year because it's at the end of its useful life. And then I see long-term deck repairs to preserve its lifespan for the same parking deck at $622,000. I thought it was at the end of its useful life. So I've got a lot of questions about how that information is prepared and put together because it sounds arbitrary to me. But aside from that, we have got to give the staff time to do this. It's going to be an adjustment. And 2 years ago, we set the rate on April 4th, and I just read the emails between you and I think I shared the emails with did I share the emails with you? I think I shared the emails with somebody. April 6th, there was an email exchange, and then the ordinance came back later. But now, I'm so happy to hear that you actually brought the fill in the blank ordinance with you. So you were ready for us to get this done tonight. So what I'm saying is I'm going to be opposing your substitute motion because I think that we should give city staff time. We've heard from plenty of people about the high taxes, the increase. Give us an opportunity. If you want a different rate, the time to debate it would be at the end of these public hearings, and we can debate the rate. And just because we set a rate, if we end up with a rate set this evening, it doesn't prevent us, I'm assuming, Mr. City Attorney, from changing that. Should we decide we need to do that down the road, is that correct?
If you set a rate tonight, and you all say you hear from the city manager and he presents issues that cause you to say, we need to raise this rate, you're gonna have to do another public hearing.
So, but if we set a rate that we didn't need to raise, then we would not need to do another public hearing, is that
If you were
correct?
to lower and lower it, no. If it was to go lower and lower.
Fair enough. I think it's appropriate, we're 3 weeks past where we were in the last budget process during the reassessment year. I think to respect the time of staff, so that we don't run out the clock because we have to have a balanced budget by the end of June, I think it would be appropriate. Actually, I request that you withdraw your motion and that we continue with
Mr. Wilder?
this tonight.
Okay. Mr. Wilder?
Thank you. I support the motion, Mayor Larry Taylor. First of all, the staff, if we want to change the rate, the citizens need to understand what are the consequences of that, and what are we willing to compromise to give up? Is it trash? Is it certain services we're going to be willing to give up? A certain less money for our schools? We need to understand the consequences of that, and just see, is there even, I want to hear from the staff, what are their thoughts on that? You know, you want to pay lower taxes, but you got to have a balance in what the city needs are and what the city has enough finances to do what we need to do based on our bond rating and various other things. So I'd like to defer and hear from the city team and see what the thoughts are before we rush and make a decision tonight. Thank you.
Yes, may I, Mr. Bender? Can I ask you a question, please? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council.
Mr. Bender, if we did not set a rate tonight and came back on the 13th, will that give you enough time to adjust the budget?
That is an impossible question for me to answer, considering all 7 of you are my wonderful bosses who are currently amidst and amok trying to decide how best the city moves forward. I dislike that you are where you are. I can understand Mr. Mission's and I think Vice Mayor Deemer's and maybe Ms. Timmer's suggestion for the staff, and I can appreciate the others of you who are suggesting maybe another outcome. What I come back to is what city managers do at root here in Virginia. In Virginia, it's a council manager form of government. And my job every day is to wake up and make sure that there are certain services that are deployed in a well-meaning way and in a fashion that we're a good steward so that we can ensure that people keep choosing Lynchburg each and every day. And what happens in the 20 plus years that I've been in this business of working in municipal government is that I propose and you dispose. And so I have proposed what I think is a fair and reasonable, and I understand the public hearings this evening, and what I mean by that is to say I'm doing my best, understanding my 20 plus years of running municipal corporations, on how best to move the city forward, taking into account several things, and always with your feedback and the feedback of I always say that I'm a CEO of a municipal corporation wherein you are the board of trustees to which that we respond to our shareholders, which are our residents. And so it is with each and every year, one of my principal things, I think I'm called, Matthew, I think I'm called under charter, the budget commissioner, something along those lines. I'll make sure that there's no tag that says that. So Mayor, I understand your question. I do. I will do my best to do whatever this body decides. It's a bit of a, not unfair because that's my job. It's just a tough place to be, if you can understand that, because invariably, however I answer that, there are people that are going to be either with me or without me as far as what that means. Because I know each one of you support me, and you have. You have come and you tell me when I'm not getting it right, and I appreciate that. There are ways in which that you do that are very supportive. I will offer, in amidst all this, and this is just by practice procedure, and Madam Clerk, make sure that I'm saying this right. The 29th is our joint meeting with Lynchburg City Schools. We have proposed between then and the 13th, there is a optional meeting, if I recall, that's correct? Correct, May 6th. So before you get to May 13th, there is another proposal, because budget is so much fun, and I just wanted to make sure there was enough days that we had options to come together and talk about it. So in amidst all of that, there is another date that isn't as far away as the 13th, and maybe it's certainly not this evening. But what I come back to, Mayor Taylor, is that I propose, and this body, in its wisdom, disposes, and whatever that looks like, we and the city staff will be prepared to ensure that this council has an informed approach to this city's fiscal year 26, Donna, is that where we are? 26 budget. I tend to lose sight. So Mayor, I didn't really answer your question, and I'm doing my best to tap dance up here a bit, and I'm just being honest with all that. But that's the reality of where we are. So to the degree that I can and the city staff can be helpful to move the city forward, that's what we will do.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Thank you for putting yourself through this. Thank you for coming up here. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I will say that more time for you to deal with what I think is inevitable of a lower rate than you proposed, it's got to help. That's just natural physics. You got more time to deal with it.
Yes, sir.
You can come back to us with better ideas if you got more days to think about it. Okay, that's my understanding. I will say this, and it's not meant to be derogatory to you.
Sure.
But like I said before, 6 of us up here have run on lower taxes. So I do think we can probably figure out which way things are going to go, hopefully. And I feel, this is a personal feeling, that there's a disconnect somewhere between what you proposed, and it came up tonight with several speakers.
Sure.
Why did we let you propose such a tax increase? And even my lower rate of 75 cents still raises some people's taxes, okay? So that disconnect is something I think we need to work on. I think we need to understand the nature of this city, and the voters have spoken so loudly, and they did it again tonight. And there's a strong majority that says, hey, you know, I'm talking about these folks that are on fixed incomes, and you've tried to address that. But that's not the whole issue. It's not just the elderly. There are people here who own optometry companies. And they're not, you know, poor. They're not kings, but they're not poor. But this is going to cause them to have to make some decisions, hard decisions. And of course, we don't want to hurt our elderly, but it's not just our elderly that are on fixed incomes. We have to be cognizant. And I hear them. I want them to know I hear them. Right. I'm listening. Right. And I just want to make sure you are.
I am. Mayor, may I address the Vice Mayor? Yes. And this is maybe a bit, to the degree that there's a disconnect, I know that I work my best to ensure there isn't. Whether or not it's my one-on-ones that I have with each one of you, the one-on-ones that we did prior to proposing this budget, the budget retreat that we put forward. And in all of that, what I have to balance is the needs, if you will, plus also the elements or aspects of what you bring to bear. And sometimes, and oftentimes, the political piece, I have to be agnostic to. And so when I come to you and I propose things, it's not a disconnect. It's 20 plus years of doing this job and understanding what it takes to run a municipal corporation. A couple years ago, we reduced the rate by 22 cents. That went 3 cents below what was then equalization. So it went from $1.11 to what would, if it was equalized, 93, we actually ended up on 89 cents. And that was $17 million that came out of the operating. And what we didn't do, in conjunction with that, there were certain initiatives. Remember the politics you talked about, and this is prior to you, Mr. Vice Mayor. There was a direct interest in supporting public safety. All right? And that is good. And that is the appropriate thing. And there was also infrastructure, and there was also economic development. Those were all different keys. And understand, year to year, since those 2 years, those things have only gotten more expensive. And so to afford what you've proposed and promised, which is increases, and to meet those expenses, that's what I have to look at. And I understand growth. Talked about it in my budget message. Understand that we are blessed, that what we've seen through, because this happens over 2 years, not 1 year in most localities, we've seen a tremendous amount of growth. And so what I also take into account in meeting with the 7 of you is also the interest of this body. And so, if anything, I hope that I'm connected. Because one of the things I heard that you were particular about was also people on fixed incomes. And that's where we learned and leaned into the senior disabled tax relief and expanded it this year. There were other elements or aspects that we just simply couldn't afford, candidly. And that there are elements or aspects of this that, in promising things to move a city forward, general wage increases, also promises to sworn personnel, Mrs. Timmer, you talked a little bit about schools earlier. I will say, in going where you propose to go, there's only but so much by way of debt service. And absolutely, Mr. Minchin's brought up, and these are the things that help kind of create, was it sharpening? I forget my biblical things sometimes, sharpening steel, yes, that kind of thing. And that we asked a question that had been there for a while about a parking garage. And what we found through interactive components of it was it wasn't as expensive, and we had a different path to take. And so, Vice Mayor Deemer, I am doing my best each and every day to stay connected to you, 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 and to hear exactly what it is. And with all that, doing my best to thread this needle here in Lynchburg to ensure that we can prosper. And some of that, understood, if we move in a direction where you propose, I will show you how to get there. And we'll do it the best way that we can. And understand, it wasn't that I wasn't listening at all. In fact, I'm acutely listening to you and to your peers about the needs, the desires, and the aspects of these cities. And also taking into account promises that have been made that I know that you want to keep as it relates to sworn personnel, to the workforce, and making sure that they see increases. And I know that this year, particularly as it remains to schools, that was a big element of what you guys, and to do those type things, it was 180 plus million that they proposed in capital improvement. I proposed 60. It barely touches it, right? And so these are all these things that come into bear. And I understand well politics of what you explain, and I don't divorce it from it. I do not overlook it. I take it to heart. You have great conversations with me. So to the degree that you believe that there's a disconnect, I pray that there's not. And if you want to move this direction as a body, I will help you get there the best way that I can. But where I proposed was not by any means leading with my chin or anything else. It was taking into account what I thought were 7 people's direction to me about how best to move forward, and also with that, my own professional background and years in service with it. So thank you for the opportunity, Mayor, Vice Mayor, to respond.
Since you kind of jumped in before I was done. But
Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
No, I really wasn't quite done, so if I can just say one more thing.
Absolutely.
I watched that. I wasn't on council then, but I watched all of the discussions and the debate on it, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And when the 89 cents rate was discussed, I heard it from not just you, but others, similar to what you just said just now. Here's all these services that are so important. And there was this idea that, if you do the 89 cents, the sky's gonna fall. The sky didn't fall, and you made it work. And I have confidence in you.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
That you will make it work. And I think the extra time that we're gonna give you, if we can support this rate, will give you the ability to come back to us with reasonable changes to your budget that you proposed that don't take our priorities off the list. You will listen to us. I know you will. You do it all the time. And you will make sure, just like last time, here's our priorities. Do what you will, but keep the police, keep the fire, keep the this, keep the schools, keep the things that we ran on, that we made a commitment to our citizens for, and help those stay up here. And then let's work with this down here to make that rate work. And you did it last time, and the sky did not fall, and I don't think it's going to again this time. Like I said, some people are still going to write more money, bigger checks to the city. Maybe not as much, but I'm not the tax increase guy, in case anybody's confused.
Sure.
So thank you for your help.
Thank you, Mr. President.
A couple of reminders. So, thank you. I don't know if anybody else wants to talk to you, but,
Mr. Mayor, may I take my seat?
Thank you, sir.
so we did, to your point, Mr. Mayor, lower taxes. So that did happen 2 years ago, significantly. So for the reminders that we're getting about council, people that ran on campaigns, that happened, okay? So secondly, I appreciate the 49 people who spoke tonight, and that's wonderful, but as an at-large representative, that means that 79,950 people did not. We have to remember all of those, okay? So I know that those 49 do represent a lot of people that did not speak, and I'm not discounting that, but there still are 79,950 people who were not here, okay? I want to remind everybody also, since we're talking about 2 years ago, what happened when the rate was decided first? Because I remember very clearly. We had to work backwards from there. And we had to decide what had to be cut after that, but it wasn't pleasant because then we had to go, well, what in our public safety package that was awesome, that was very well put together by our city manager, because he did listen to all of us very well, and it was the best public safety package this city has ever seen, and it was on the verge of collapsing because of what we did by voting on the rate first. And it almost fell apart. Because of that public safety package staying intact, which we had to fight our butts off for, our police officers are the highest paid they've ever been. Our firefighters are the highest paid they've ever been. Our retention rate is better than it's ever been. We addressed compression pay, which would not have been done had we not been able to save it. But what happened after that? Then we had to worry about what was on the table? Department cuts. City jobs, which we were sworn would not happen. Sworn, no jobs would be lost. And that's what we had to decide between, was city jobs and the schools. And what happened? Levelized funding to the schools is what happened. That's who lost that year, because we couldn't do it all, because we decided the rate first. And all I asked for was that we just have the discussion. I never said that we couldn't cut the rate. I just said, let's talk through what the consequence could look like before we set the rate, so that we didn't end up there. That is all we're proposing tonight. No one's saying let's not cut it. Let's just be sensible so we're not caught up there. You guys, our city manager has listened to us again. He put $60 million for the schools. That's only half of what the schools need. Only half. They need over $100 million. And again, it's for buildings that are falling apart, y'all. And he's only giving half. He's asking for money for the city pool that our families who cannot afford to swim anywhere else are going. And all they're asking for is a pool that they can be proud of to go to. They deserve a pool to be proud and safe to swim in. And we had a sweet girl who was homeless at one time speak earlier about the benefits of community pools and libraries, and he's put that in there too for the people who believe in those resources. He has listened to everybody. Now we have the opportunity to go through in the next conversations that we might have, the next meetings that the mayor and I are asking to have, and maybe make some modifications. And we might have to. That is all we're asking to do. Doesn't make us less of who we are up here to say, let's just slow our roll just a tad. We have a very capable staff. If we have to push it a couple weeks, the world's not going to fall apart in Lynchburg. But let's just have the full conversation. Nothing has to happen tonight. People will still vote for you, even if you get the rate a little bit later than you wanted, or it's not exactly what you wanted. It's okay. Let's just be sensible. With that, can we please vote, sir?
Mr. Wilder had, Mr. Wilder first.
Make it just real quick, again, because the person had to say real quick. Again, I just want to thank the city manager and city team. I really appreciate you listening to the voices. You listening to the city council members, all the individual meetings, the individual meeting with the attorney, the individual meeting with the clerk and the finance team. I just want to thank you. We appreciate your work and your efforts. You know, I know you're sincere and you have the heart of the people. And when we look at the budget, how you balance this and how to work with, try to give money for the schools and how to give money for this, that's a servant's heart. You know, in public service, it's not an area where you get a lot of rewards for or appreciation for. You know, if you're like in the church work, you don't get a lot of working with kids. You don't get a lot of appreciation, a lot of thank yous, because they just don't do that. So again, we appreciate the work you're doing and listening to the voices of the people. You know, a lot of times I know you work in situations that people don't. I've just noticed people don't always talk the best, and I just want to apologize. And I want to tell you, we appreciate the work you're doing. And like even when the rate went from $1.11 to 89, and to equalize, it was a much different amount, and it still went lower. You did make it work. You made it work, but I know it was stressful. I know the staff had to make sacrifices. I know y'all still didn't get the things you wanted to do. And so many times we look at infrastructure situations, some things, you wonder why certain buildings falling apart. Well, why didn't they fix that? Because they didn't have the money to fix it when we told you to 25 years ago. Sandusky was on the chop, was near repairs when I was on the school board 20 years ago. And it still hasn't been repaired because they didn't have the resources, the funds to do that. And the last point, when we had a presentation from the fire department, they showed that $10+ million or whatever amount had increased in the fire department's budget. How much of an increase have we seen in the school budget? Thank you.
Ms. Timmer?
I'm going to go off track for just a second. And I love Dr. Wilder's intent to honor. He's always very intentional to honor the people around him, and I just so appreciate that. We're often on different sides of the issues, but I just love that about you, Dr. Wilder. A couple things that, you're good. A couple things that the city manager brought up that one is more of a comment, but the other is a clarification. You talked about 17 million coming out of the operating budget. And I just wanted to clarify that that was not 17 million decrease from the previous budget, but that was 17 million less than the proposed budget.
Mrs. Timmer?
Yeah, thanks.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, thank you for letting me approach and answer the question. So if you do the math, and please hold me to this because this is not, I'm an attorney only on TV these days. And
And a seminarian.
and a seminarian.
And a dancer.
And all those
All
things.
the things.
All those things. So if you took the rate at that time, the penny was worth $650,000. If the math on 11 or 22 cents is roughly 17 million.
Sorry, I know
sorry.
I'm cutting you off.
No, sorry.
I'm not talking about the penny's worth. I'm talking about the total operating budget. Was there a $17 million decrease, not in the proposed budget, but from fiscal year 2024 to fiscal year 2025? Was there a $17 million decrease in the operating budget?
I think I understand what you're, so. It was from the $1.11. It was from the $1.11. Yes, and so to your point, I understand what you're saying. So you're right, Mrs. Timmer, there was not a decrease there. It was in the overall, if you take that penny.
It was the penny amount.
Correct. And so,
Right.
and then the only comment that I was making to the vice mayor was then alongside those, we made investments in other areas that then created further expenses. And that's what you've seen in public safety by way of proportion in the pie chart we've done.
I appreciate that. No,
okay.
thank you.
Too much there?
No, it's the need to separate out individual issues because I feel like a lot of the time it becomes conflated in our conversation, right? Because we're talking about the rate amount, we're talking about the real estate assessments, we're talking about the value of the penny, and all of these things when it comes into a conversation, you can say there is an increase here and a cut there, but is it the proposed budget? Is it the operating budget? How are these things interacting with each other? And I think there's often confusion. So I just wanted to clarify that the $17 million that you referenced that came out of operating was out of the proposed budget based on really a tax increase because of the valuation increase, not from a 2024 fiscal year budget to the 2025 fiscal year budget.
I understand.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm going to retain the floor. Thank you. Thank you.
We're good?
Yes, thank you so much. It's just really important to clarify these issues. Another point that I did just want to touch on, and maybe I'm just a little sensitive to this because I am a politician now, but what was referenced is politics, that essentially we're dealing with politics, and I really appreciate city staff. We can't do this job without you, but it is an interplay. It's not substance on one side and politics on the other. It is, we're going door to door and we're recognizing what people are facing in their day-to-day lives. And this is about home ownership. This issue is really about home ownership and the sustainability of home ownership in Lynchburg. And in addition to that, we know that this gets passed on to renters. It negatively impacts them. And right now we have a very turbulent economy. And I'm looking at elements in the CIP that I think are beautiful. I think it's wonderful to have a public pool. I think it's wonderful to, one, we've got to address sewage, we've got to address mold, we've got to address the HVAC systems in the schools. Those are musts. It's wonderful to have an aesthetically pleasing library. I had the privilege of visiting one as a kid frequently, and it was wonderful. But there are creative opportunities to be able to address some of these issues. Library resources are largely geared more towards really workforce, I think, at this point. Computer labs, how can we incorporate that with some of the community outreach centers? What are some of the creative approaches that we can do? And as I've mentioned these ideas of various types to stakeholders, there's interest in private investment and donations to be able to address certain issues with the pool or to be able to address certain issues with the library. And so we've had a number of citizens ask us to roll up our sleeves, and I think we do it. I think we equalize the rate, protect home ownership. That's going to create stability in our community. And then we get creative to address some of the desires in the community. And that's when community comes together, not when it's compelled by government, but when it's an invitation to be a part of an identity and to support the community. And I think we have a unique privilege to be able to do that. And I think that's the role of council, to lead that trajectory. To be able, I'm not going to call people out in the crowd, but there are people across the aisle that I talk with regularly. You come to the meetings, and I love it. And we're able to have substantive conversations about what are things that we can do to build those bridges and to be able to effectuate change. And I think this is a real opportunity for that, but we have to protect home ownership in our community. We have to make sure that renters are not unable to afford rent because the home or the property owners have to raise the rates. I mean, this really is a big deal. Inflation's gone up a lot. It's a turbulent economic time. This is a major issue. It's not a political issue. It becomes political, but it is a substantive issue about sustainability in our community. Thank you.
Ms. Timmer,
Yeah.
roll up your sleeves. I got a job for you. I want you to go over to James Crossing, clean the pool out, open it up.
I have someone who wants to do that, Mr. Mayor. But, Mr. Mayor, that discussion happens. I'm going to take the floor back because
No.
you're calling people out. No, I'm going to take the floor
Okay.
back.
Okay. Yes. Call the question.
Mr. Mayor, that was inappropriate. That was inappropriate.
Okay, we'll give somebody else a chance. Chris?
I haven't spoken on any of this. I'll simply say this. I appreciate the fodder for feeding a fake news service like the Lynchburg Herald. I called a question. Let's vote.
Mr. Mayor.
I called a question.
Can you call the question?
Mr. Mayor, there needs to be some things corrected that were stated that are just absolutely not accurate.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor.
Mr.
I
Mayor,
appreciate an opportunity to respond.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
If this is going to continue, I'm going to slip outside and hear folks on the water, sewer, and stormwater public hearing in the hallway.
I'll be quick, Mr. Mayor. I'll be quick. So, Mr. Mayor, one of the things that I want to point out is there was information that was put out here about the revenues from the adopted FY24 budget. So, just to be clear, the 2023 budget had $207 million in revenue. The adopted 24 budget, which was our first budget with the 89 cents, had $214 million adopted. And then it jumped to about $225 million. So what happened is the 24 adopted budget, we started with a projected $25.4 million unassigned fund balance, which is the surplus. And we ended up with $40.3 million in the unassigned fund balance. That's the actual numbers. So if we're going to sit up here and we're going to talk about these things, let's just be accurate and factual about what happened. Same thing, like the discussion about the schools. To say the schools got level funding in 2024 is not accurate. The schools in 2024 had an increase in their total budget. It went from roughly, I got it right here, hold on. It went from about 100 million to 105 million. And so when you look at that, That's not level funding. And to say that what we did was devastating to the school's operating budget, I would disagree. I think that actually that was one of the best moves we could have made, because what we did was we noticed that there was a bloated administration, and we took action, and we took money out of administration and put it into instruction. That's what we did. It was the largest instruction budget in the history of Lynchburg City Schools up until that time. It was a massive increase. And how do I know? Well, I'm married to a teacher, right? So I know when I see those contracts come in because of the failed school boards year after year where they did the minimum, that this was the first time in a decade that my wife didn't get the minimum increase in her salary. That's a fact.
Okay, thank you.
That's a fact. So if we're going to speak to what is going on, we need to use the facts. I appreciate everybody's passion, but the reality is we did fine last time.
Okay.
And I'm going to just strongly oppose your substitute motion. We should address this tonight and give staff the
There's a
time to work
motion
on
on the
it.
floor, let us vote on it.
All right, the substitute motion is to proceed with this hearing and come back at a later date. I'll call for the voice vote. Councilmember Feraldi? No. Councilmember Missions?
To proceed with this hearing?
Yes, the motion was to proceed with all the hearings and then come back at a later date.
No.
Councilmember Reed?
Yes.
Councilmember Timmer?
I'm going to clarify as well. Proceed with the hearings tonight, come back.
This is a substitute motion by the mayor.
Okay, by
and
the mayor.
Councilmember Reed. So
Okay, no.
they can clarify. Okay. Councilmember Wilder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deemer?
No.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
The motion fails.